Alliance has called for an immediate child protection and welfare audit to be carried out in all properties used as emergency accommodation for homeless families. The organisation was responding to last night's RTE television documentary about homeless families living in hotels and information released to this programme about substandard conditions in some emergency accommodation.
Almost 800 families and more than 1,600 children were living in emergency accommodation at the end of last year, more than half of them in hotels, and the experiences of some were the subject of an RTE documentary last night.
Did you like the B&B?
No.
No?
Do you?
No.
Mother?
So you wanted your own house?
Yeah, I love my house, do you?
Yeah. High five.
Yesterday it was also revealed that infestations, unsanitary conditions and antisocial behaviour were among more than 100 complaints made to the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive last year about emergency accommodation.
It's not acceptable. I wouldn't excuse it. I wouldn't expect people. I would not live in it. I wouldn't expect people to live in it. But it's important to be able to say that we actually make sure that the issue is actually dealt with comprehensively. We have skilled professionals on the ground whose sole job is to make sure that these conditions are above standard.
What we saw on the television last night is not acceptable. It's not acceptable that the emergency accommodation provided is not fit for purpose and families should not be expected to live in those conditions. It will be an absolute objective, a social imperative of the next government to ensure that those conditions are eradicated.
The opposition say the government have inherited a crisis but made it worse.
The government have had 5 years. 5 years ago, they said they would eliminate homelessness by 2016, and in fact, every single thing they've done has made this crisis worse and worse, and is now the biggest housing and homelessness crisis in living memory.
A children's body which represents more than 100 members says it's concerned about the protection, welfare and development of children living in hotels.
As a matter of urgency, the state needs to send in to the Child and Family Agency to do a child protection and welfare audit of all emergency accommodation where children and families are actually accommodated. At the moment, we'd be concerned that these hotels and accommodation centres don't have child protection policies in place. They don't have staff that are vetted.
The Alliance said they've been warning of these problems for years and that the time has now come for the government to respond. Samantha Library, RTE News.